Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with a Greedfall news update. We have a ton of brand new stuff to go over because finally Spiders dropped an extensive gameplay look. As a lot of you know, that was one of my major gripes with the promotion of this game. Everything looked good when we saw the little snippets and trailers, but finally we got a really open look at the game and I'm fully sold now, man. I cannot wait. But anyway, lots of brand new information to go over, so let's dive right in. The first new gameplay mechanic we're introduced to is skill alters, which grant us a skill point when we find them. Now, upon opening the skills menu, we learned about a lot of various different skills. So if you're curious about building your character, whether it's magical, technical, or strength-based, we're gonna have some answers for you today based off how this game plays. So let's start off with magic, where we have the Divine Magic Ring, which is gonna be your main magic weapon. When you press square, that is a basic attack called Shadow Missile. Now remember these names because they're going to be referenced later on in the video. Triangle, on the other hand, is the destabilizing attack known as Shadow Impact. Now the Shadow Impact gives you plus 50% magic damage, plus 200% of the destabilizing effect, and it costs 3 magic to use because the mana bar must be considered. Lastly is when you press L2, you have a Furious Magic Attack, which is a guaranteed hit. Now, I'm not sure what the chances are of missing if that all becomes skill dependent. I think it more so means that you are guaranteed to knock someone right on their butt. Next is Lightning Dash, which is the slick looking dash we see in a lot of the gameplay videos. It allows you to use an instantaneous dash when quickly dodging a second time. It only works with Divine Magic Ring. So if you have your rings equipped, then you can do this Lightning Dash. And we'll get into how that's feasible no matter how you build your character. Next is Temporal Rift. It greatly slows enemies in close proximity when casting Shadow Burst, which is another skill completely separate to the Divine Magic Ring abilities that you already have. So there's going to be a lot of slowing, time stopping amidst these abilities. Now, for those who are wondering, what is Shadow Burst? Shadow Burst knocks back enemies and deals damage to everyone around the caster. It's useful, according to the game, to turn the tide of a melee battle. So if you get that and then you get Temporal Rift, not only are you knocking them back, but you also slow them if they're close to you. So you have double the impact and then you can really go on the offensive and, as the game suggests, turn combat around. Next is Light Shadow Impact. So does that sound familiar? That is your triangle attack for the Divine Magic Ring. And this one reduces the cost of Shadow Impact by 10%. So you're constantly draining that magic bar, and that's something you really have to pay attention to, which is why this video, I believe, emphasized a lot of hybrid building. Personally, I don't want to take that route, but I understand why they would encourage it. But having skills like this makes magic only feasible. Next is Light Projectiles, which Shadow Missile, being your square attack, now has a reduced cost of 10%. So you can use that and reduce the cost and continuously attack your foes with your magic rings from a distance. Next is Destabilizing Impact. Shadow Impact causes greater, less of balance, and it's a stun plus 100% buff. So pretty much you're knocking any enemy off their feet, which is important because if you guys do not know, the whole combat system in Greedfall is based entirely around armor, whittling down that armor, knocking them down, and doing bonus damage at that point. It's a constant loop, and it seems very engaging based off the approaches you can take no matter how you build your character and target them. Now let's say I'm not interested in magic, Matty. Well, we got some answers on the technical side of the tree, starting off with Set Trap. This lets you put an alchemical preparation on the ground. It will explode when an enemy comes near and damages every enemy in the explosion's radius. Next is Pistols, which I wanted to point out because there isn't anything specific about their description, and that's why I wanted to point it out. There isn't a control description like we saw with the rings, or, as we're gonna get into next, the one-handed blades. So the one-handed blades say square, quick attack, and triangle is another destabilizing attack where you actually kick your foe for 0 damage, but then you have them lose balance. So there's a little give and take there. You don't have to worry about stamina or your magic bar like you would with the other destabilizing attack, but you're doing 0 damage. Also, L2 is the same Furious attack as rings, but what I want to note here is that pistols don't really have any special button to click like a quick attack, a destabilizing attack, which does actually make sense, of course, but more so I think these are going to be a side weapon in any kit. After that, we have one-handed heavy, square is your basic attack, and then triangle is a slower, powerful attack that deals more damage. I want to emphasize this because there is no mention of stunning your foe, knocking them back, the destabilizing effect. None of that is in place here for the one-handed heavy weapon. Now, given how the combat's structured in this game with the hotkeys I'll highlight later, you are probably able to stun your foe or destabilize them, switch to your one-handed heavy, and then do the triangle attack and ensue massive damage on your foe. The last ability is a magic one that they accidentally scan over to, which is Stasis. It completely immobilizes enemies, and receiving damage during this effect will cancel it. So if you do Stasis and someone manages to hit you with a stray bullet or a stray slash or attack, it will cancel the Stasis effect, which I believe makes the Shadow Burst a little bit more appealing if you upgrade it, because not only do you knock back everybody, but then if it's upgraded, you can slow them too, and it does not get canceled out. It does damage, it changes the tide of the battle. So I don't know how I feel about Stasis, but anyway, that is the list of skills that was unveiled during this gameplay trailer. Next, they move on over to the attribute page, where we learn very briefly about both strength and charisma at their level 1 tier. So let's start off with strength. This increases all melee attack abilities, so that is something we already knew, but also when you're at level 1 strength, you get plus 20% stun to the enemy, and also you do plus 10% armor damage, so there is a difference there. Number 1 for charisma, slightly reduced merchant prices and improves companion combat abilities. It also brings a slight increase in the chance of success for dialogue choices. So I think a lot of us imagined, yes, the reduction of merchant prices, yes, we would be more successful when it came to communicating with other people. I was quite surprised at the fact that we can improve companion combat abilities. There is a lot of emphasis on that in some of the blogs that were released for Greedfall, some of the write-ups I've been reading, so I'm curious how smooth all of that is. In fact, it does remind me of some of the leader abilities that we were talking about when it came to the Outer Worlds. Now for a bunch of little random tidbits that I picked up on that were scattered throughout this video for the rest of the gameplay. The video does note while exploring that at nighttime, it is much more dangerous. And I thought this was cool because since the game has the ability to set up camps, which are used for fast travel around the world and regions that you are going to be in, that these camps will be useful since you can sleep here. And since you can pass time at the camps, searching for them in the heat of the night, and you're trying to get away from all these deadly creatures and enemies trying to kill you, I really thought that this was a good approach to world exploration, adding a little danger while you're out there at night, a la, we'll say, Dying Light. It's a good inspiration to take from. But we also got our look at the full map, the full entire island map for Greedfall. And I gotta say, this map style, the way it's drawn, reminds me a lot of Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is a superb compliment because that has to be one of my favorite maps I've ever seen in a game, which I know sounds kind of ridiculous to say, but look, ladies and gentlemen, maps are important in these types of games, and I love what I'm seeing here. Not only is it sizable, but there's various regions, and they go on to explain all the different ones there. I'm gonna stay away from that a little bit because I thought it got a smidge spoilery, so you can go to the original gameplay video and watch at your own risk. They also did show off that there are regional maps and then the world map. So that's important to note there, because think of it like if you're playing Fallout or any BGS game, you have your local map and then you have your world map. So you can know where you are in the nearby vicinity, and then you can know where you are in the overall world space. Really important, because if you're questing and you're getting lost, you want to know exactly where you're at, and the map can help you out. Now, I did mention hotkeys, binding. How does that all work? When you have the tactical menu open, the narrator actually mentions that items in this tactical menu can be hotkeyed, so you can use everything in real-time combat if you're not interested in the tactical menu. So it gives you the option there. Do you want to slow stuff down, think for a second, and approach combat that way? Or do you want your approach to combat to be all-out attack? You want to focus on the action, you want it to be very reactionary based. It seems like both systems are well supported here, but I like the idea of hotkeying because he was hotkeying weapons. So he had a sword and he had his magic rings. So he'd switch to his magic rings, evade, get some space, attack from a distance, and then when it was safe where the poison cloud was gone, he would move into this creature and switch weapons. I thought this was awesome and really highlighted how strong looking, surprisingly at that, Greedfall combat is going to be, because that's kind of one of the areas that I feel Spiders has always wavered in when it came to Bound by Flame and Technomancer. These were games that I didn't think had good combat because it was always spongy enemies, repetitive animations, but this looks satisfying, this looks varied, and it looks well constructed, well thought out. So just know, yes, you can bind stuff 2 hotkeys, and that's important because, once again, this build was really emphasizing the hybrid approach to the game of mixing and matching all these different skills. I personally want to max out 2 of them. I don't want to go all over the board and just have a little bit of everything. I don't like that approach in RPGs. Next, we do note that trophies are unlocked. Now, this is standard in any PlayStation game, but the reason I wanted to highlight it is because I saw a smidge of speculation that, oh, do you get trophies for killing giant creatures? Because I told you, trophy unlocked, swamp creature. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. It is literally a trophy, because what happens is you can see on the control bindings, they are playing on a PlayStation. It's just not giving them the trophy pop. It's just a substitute for the HUD that would come in if you typically unlocked a trophy. And it's also showing that trophies are programmed into that part of the experience there. So when they're testing it, they know trophies go through. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. I don't think it was anything that was fooling a ton of people, but just in case someone was over speculating, like, you know, I've been guilty of in the past, that's what the trophy stands for. Last but not least is when you are spying at the end on some tier 4D natives, and it actually fails because you don't know enough of the native language. And now I thought this was interesting for a number of reasons. At first I thought it was just an original cutscene, but then I noted that Siora, who is a native to the island, is present with you, but there are no gameplay impacts at this point in time, meaning that it all falls on your talent. And so once again, I'm gonna bring in the Kingdom Come Deliverance comparison where you had to learn how to read so that you could interact more often with shops and know what you were looking at when you were doing alchemy. And I don't think it's ever gonna go that deep, but I think it's awesome that you have the option to invest in talents or meet people who can teach you the language here on the island. And in turn, if you did that, you could spy on these people properly. I thought that was really neat and really unique. But that'll wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of brand new information was able to be unveiled through this extensive look at the gameplay. And like I said in the beginning, I'm very sold on this. I'm very, very, very happy with what I saw here. So I hope you guys are too. If you're not, or maybe you're as stoked as I am, then tell me why you're feeling each way. Fire away in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.